If you look at the vibrational spectrum, the vibrational scale, the worst emotions that you can ever feel on a regular basis are shame and guilt. Because when you are feeling shameful and guilty, guess what? Your reality will kind of reflect more shame and guilt into your life. So when you're feeling such a shame and guilty, it's like you are in this self pity, this self hate, self sabotage zone where you are your worst enemy. You feel so guilty about yourself. You feel so shameful about yourself. And this is where even willpower doesn't seem to exist. This is where your confidence is broken. This is where each, you know, fraction of your identity, the smallest of the smallest bit of a willpower that you have, is completely crushed because the shame and the guilt somewhat takes over everything else. And it is so hard to overcome this, especially when you are trapped in this emotional state for a long period of time. Now, I'm not saying that you must never experience shame or guilt ever again in your entire life. All I'm saying is, do not make shame and guilt the predominant or the most dominant emotion that you experience on a regular basis. Because everybody experiences a amount of shame and guilt, but that doesn't necessarily, messes up their reality. That doesn't necessarily mess up their life. It's like they experience shame and guilt, but it constitutes only 5% of their entire wavelength of emotions that they experience on a regular basis. Now, the only difference is if you are experiencing 95% of shame and guilt and you're experiencing 5% love, guess what? This vibration is going to take over. Shame and guilt is going to take over. And every situation that you encounter in your waking life is going to reflect back that same energy that you kind of radiate outside. Now, the reason why all these bad guys, people who do really wrong things in life, they don't experience shame and guilt and they have an amazing reality. Like, this is why bad guys and supervillains manifest all their desires. It's because they don't feel shame and guilt. Now, I made an entire video on how bad guys and supervillains kind of manifest whatever they desire. I'll link it down in the description below and the pop-up card above. So basically, the whole idea is they don't feel shame, they don't feel guilt, they feel that they have done the right thing. Now, when they have that feeling, they've committed all these atrocities. And if they are not feeling shameful and guilty about it, why do you feel shameful and guilty when you do some small mistake, when you do some petty issue? Like, you may have gone through some tough relationship issues, or you would have broken up with somebody, and you would feel so shameful and guilty about yourself for putting yourself into that situation. I mean, there are people out there who committed such bad events or things in life and they don't feel shameful, and you are feeling so much shame and guilt, you're letting it consume you and you're letting it destroy your willpower. See the amount of damage it costs you. See the amount of life it kind of takes away from you. Now, what basically happens is when you feel so much shame and guilt on a regular basis, you don't have willpower, you don't have self-esteem, confidence. It's there, but it's very low. And all this, if you look at it as energy bars, these shame and guilt have 98% and 99%. And your willpower, confidence, self-esteem, self-image is at 4%, 6%, 8%. And guess what's going to dominate? The 98% shame is going to dominate. And people who you meet in real life, they kind of reflect back that shameful energy upon you. Every conversation that you have brings up that shame inside you, brings up that guilt inside you. Now, if you are going and living your entire existence by being consumed by shame and guilt, you are not living much of life. Every task becomes so hard. What's supposed to take 3 hours to finish will take 8 hours to finish because you have so much shame and guilt that's running inside your mind. Now, if you let go of it, if you stop, putting yourself into the pit, rise above your dark emotions, let go of it, overcome the trauma that has caused you to feel shameful and guilty about every minor inconvenience in life or just your life in general. Once you let go and transcend to this higher vibrational state where the majority of your vibrational feeling on a regular basis is love, joy, happiness, guess what? You start to work more efficiently. Life becomes more easier. Things get more prettier. You'll find more reasons to be happy about. Because if you are in the state of anger, you'll find more things to be angry about. Now, anger as an emotion is way, way, way better than feeling shameful and guilty. Because at least in anger, you kind of find ways to take action. Now, when I was overcoming my addiction issues, I was in a state of shame and guilt for a long time. That eventually kept me in that state. I could never break out of addiction. It's only when I got angry on myself, I started taking action. I started taking action and decided to quit all these substances through which I was chained upon. I was kind of depending on them and I was so angry on myself. And that's what caused me to change. Now, if you are in the state of shame and guilt, trying to jump to love might be hard because that's a very big jump. An easier jump is to step up to anger. Because when you step up to anger, you have a little bit of willpower that kicks in and a tiny, teeny bit of self-confidence and self-esteem that kind of arises. And then you should not stay in anger. You kind of elevate your vibration to courage. Now, when you elevate to courage, that's when things start to change. That's when life starts to become more worthwhile. And from courage, it's easier to start vibrating at the state of love. Now, when you start vibrating in the state of love, work that actually takes 6 hours can be done within 2 hours because you kind of seamlessly slip into flow states several times. So when you slip into a flow state, kind of you take on a task and you finish that task and you look at the clock, 8 hours has gone by. And you'll be like, oh my God, I didn't even feel like time was passing by. And that's what flow state feels like. Now, flow state happens only when you are in a very high vibrational space where you can actually put in that energy to be more productive. If you are in a very low vibrational space, you will get into flow states, but those flow states are not really helping you. Those flow states are more self-destructive. They are self-sabotaging you and they're depreciating your energy, your life, and your life force. So the key element is to not, give so much weightage or to overcome and let go emotions of shame and guilt because these emotions trap you down. They kind of destroy your willpower. They kind of destroy your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and the motivation that you have and the drive that you have. So these are the worst emotions that you can ever experience on a regular basis. It's not a problem if you feel them once or twice, but eventually you have to let go of them and transcend to a higher vibrational state.